Welcome to the Nomad Summit podcast, your go-to resource for all things digital nomadism. Today we're diving into a topic that's become a real game changer for many nomads around the world: digital nomad visas. These visas promise to make it easy for remote workers to live and work legally abroad, but they're not always as straightforward as they seem. To help us unpack what digital nomad visas are, how they work, and what they mean for the future of remote work, we're joined by Lily Szabo. She's a researcher and advocate who's been deep in the trenches of understanding nomad visas, and even co-wrote an influential policy brief on the topic. So join us as we explore the evolving world of digital nomad visas with Lily Szabo. My name is Palabo, and with me again is Alexandra from the Nomad Summit. Welcome to the Nomad Summit podcast, episode 6, Demystifying Digital Nomad Visas with Lily Szabo. This episode is brought to you by Covered.ee, a health insurance built for nomads with a world-first visa-backed start guarantee. Covered.ee. The Nomad Summit podcast. Welcome, Alexandra, and welcome, Lily.
Hi, Fallon.
Hello.
How are you guys? Again, an episode where we're in different parts of the world. Unless you've moved, Alexandra, you're still in Italy at the Garda Lake?
No, I'm in Germany now.
Okay. And I'm in Cape Town, and in a few hours I'm heading to Quebec, Canada. And Lily, where are you?
I'm in Chiang Mai, and I recently moved, but it was just about 5 minutes up the road.
Okay.
So keeping things pretty local these days.
Yeah, it's so interesting. Whenever we do these recordings, we're in different parts of the world, and it's hard to keep track on where people are. Chiang Mai, and what's it like there right now in June?
It's lovely. It's a bit hot, but I'm really grateful that the sunshine is back, because last week we had a ton of rain. And one of my reasons for moving back to Chiang Mai after living in London and to some extent New York, it was also just the weather. Mm-hmm. It's I can't do cold, I can't do darkness, so I love this time of year.
Yeah,
it's also nice because it's low season, so there's not so many visitors around. It's one of those secrets, do you want to tell people about it or not?
But burning season is over.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, burning season is over. The air is crystal clear. It's just lovely to be here.
Yeah, wonderful, wonderful. I can't wait to come back for the next Nomad Summit. Did you go to the Nomad Summit?
Yeah, I got on stage. So I walked into a room full of digital nomads and told them why they should not be digital nomads.
Oh, I remember.
I remember that.
Yeah. So I think it landed well for those who've been part of the lifestyle for a long time, because I didn't want to take a dump on the lifestyle. But yeah, I think if you believe that the point is digital nomadism, then you're going to lose something really important in your life. The point of having that kind of freedom and privilege is to be able to make choices, right? And be intentional. Yeah. And I think actually when it comes to digital nomad visas, I have the same lens. The point isn't just to create visas and make allowances and options for digital nomads, remote workers endlessly. The point is hey, what kind of relationship is country trying to cultivate with certain communities, and what's the sort of exchange back and forth supposed to be, right?
Well, that's a whole other topic that we're not diving into today, but Alexandra, I think that we should have Lily back and have a full episode about why we should not be nomads.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. I'm considering stopping being one myself. So
I've been fully nomadic for 9 years, and some people say, oh, when you hit that 10-year mark, that's when you want to settle down again. But I don't know if it's going to happen. Right now, I still feel comfortable, but I can feel that I'm slowing down.
Yeah. I've turned into a slowmad.
Yeah.
So I still enjoy traveling, but I definitely cannot do the fast traveling with changing the country every week.
Should we dive into the topic of this episode? Digital nomad visas.
Yeah.
Could you start by telling a little bit about yourself and your experiences as a digital nomad?
Yeah, so I call myself a fake digital nomad because while I've been part of this community, my stepping stone into the digital nomad community was actually me moving back home to Chiang Mai, which is where I grew up. And just having had these experiences abroad and within the startup scene, I really wanted to see that happen here. And I wanted to kind of like be a bridge between communities. So I started just trying to like connect like the local players and host meetups. And something that came up when I was talking to the digital nomads and just asking like, why aren't you spending more time here? Or what would make you interested in like starting a business, investing more here? And the visa thing came up a lot. And it was also quite personal because, around that time is like when I met my now husband, and he was just like explaining what a hassle the visas were, which of his friends were having these troubles crossing the borders. And once I was able to connect with people within government here, it was very clear that there was just a lack of data. There just wasn't enough information about who digital nomads were. And the perception was basically like they had these YouTube videos of these nomad guys who were basically bragging about how little money they were spending living in Chiang Mai. And that was just not a good look, right? They're like, why would we invite more of these people here? What is the point of like, what could possibly be the benefit of a visa? So for me, it came to, from just community building to wanting to support this issue through sharing more information and storytelling and really communicating just like the reality, the pain points, and also the benefits of, offering better solutions.
Yeah, it's definitely not a very good side of the digital nomads, the people who are bragging about how little money they can spend in a place. I can imagine that doesn't really inspire the governments to invest in visas. So maybe you can give a little bit of explanation about what exactly digital nomad visa is and how it's different from the usual work or tourist visas for those who are new to this.
Yeah. So I think the whole reason that in 2023 I published my white paper on digital nomad visas is because there was no definition on what that was supposed to be. I think we saw a huge race during the pandemic, which just created just this crazy reality, right? I know so many friends who are nomads and, that kind of just homelessness, that sort of elective, fun homelessness is fine until you have a crisis like this and people trying to move across borders. But then with tourist economies totally like wiped out, right? Countries were all of a sudden a little more open-minded, wanted to get experimental. So you had a lot of visas announced and launched, but I just didn't really see coherence there in the strategy. It was just very clear that there was a mismatch in understanding about like who digital nomads were, what their pain points were, and what kind of mobility solutions they actually needed. Because all of these visas were kind of rooted in like a more old school sort of like paradigm. Because even just a requirement that like, oh, you need to go to your home country to apply. You need to apply in person at like embassy. You need to get a lease before you can submit an application, which you can't sign a lease if you don't already have a visa.
Where that's the chicken and the egg.
Yeah, you had a lot of these issues, and it was also very unclear targeting because you're like, okay, like, are you trying to target people for tourism, or are you trying to get people to become residents and stay longer and invest more? And so that's why I set out to write the white paper, to sort of like reflect like, okay, what's going on out there, and state, in my opinionated take on what they should be doing. And I ended up sort of reviewing 30 plus visas, because even though you could read the news, like you could find blog posts that would be like 60 plus, blah, blah, blah. But my criteria was I was only looking at visa programs that were specifically targeting people who could work remotely, i.e., your ability to remote work and demonstrating proof of that was what made you eligible for the visa. And these remote work visas, often called digital nomad visas, are visas that typically would allow people 1 year or more to come into a country and remote work legally, right? You don't need to have a local work permit. Some of them want you to pay taxes, some of them don't. So at the time, there definitely wasn't a lot of standardization, but certainly in like 2025, we've progressed a lot into what that looks like. So we even have, Thailand has now launched the Destination Thailand Visa, which, my advocacy work, like back in the day, it's like crazy that this has happened, because what it is, it's like you apply once, and if you get approved, you have a visa that's valid for 5 years, and you get 180 days entry each time. So this is suitable for like the digital nomad who's like moving around seasonally, as well as someone who wants to set up a home base, because you can come in, enter for 180 days, and you can do a border hop. Like you can leave to another country and then come back, and you immediately get another 180 days, or you can just supply additional paperwork and go to the local immigration office and get an extension. So it's super flexible. And the criteria to apply, you have to demonstrate your proof of remote work. So either you have to have like your freelancer portfolio, past invoices, or if you have an employer, you have to show your contract with them. You have to demonstrate you have some means to take care of yourself. So like a minimum income and savings requirement. And it's pretty basic.
Or a sponsor.
Yes. Yeah, you have to show you have money in the bank. And, I was really proud of Thailand for doing this, because I was like, yes, this is like what I would have recommended. And it's so nice to see it in action, because it really just simplifies things and makes things flexible. But most important, like it makes it clear. So it's not a perfect visa, and some things are still being like revisited, but yeah, the landscape has changed a lot since I started getting involved in this kind of work.
I love DTV. It really changed my plans so much.
Yeah.
I was one of those digital nomads that was a little bit tired of just hopping around and having a lot of like lack of security in terms of how long I can stay. So I moved back to Europe, but then as soon as the Thailand launched DTV, I got it and came back with the plan to stay, which later changed. But I was planning, like DTV was my pass. Okay, I can actually stay in Thailand and just live my peaceful life there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got it too, like 6 months ago, just before coming to Thailand. So I have that one too. And when I was there, I was actually playing with the idea, maybe I should get a long time lease on a small apartment, so I have a place. I didn't do it, but it crossed my mind, and I might do it at some point, because I absolutely love Chiang Mai and Thailand. So yeah. You never know. Let's hop around the globe and tell us more about some of the most popular digital nomad visas out there at the moment.
Yeah, I would say early on it was Barbados and Croatia and Malta come to mind as countries that were early to the race, and we saw, we learned a lot of lessons from them about what to do and like what not to do. And I think Barbados specifically released a lot of data about like the local economic impact, like how in terms of like follow-on investment, how many visitors. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but it was really great to see that so that other countries could like learn and pay attention. And I think Croatia is a really good example of a country that like kept trying to improve based on the data. They've made amendments, but I think like by far the most popular nomad visa launches have probably been for Spain and Portugal. So I think that's a part of the world, like Portugal especially, has been popular with digital nomads for so long. And they had like, I think it was the D1. They had a passive income visa for a long time, which people would call their digital nomad visa, but was like definitely not that. But now they've launched something that is tailor-made for digital nomads. And the really awesome thing about that is that it actually offers you a pathway to like long-term residency, which is, something, there's different pain points, right? Some people just want a little bit of stability and peace of mind, and to know that like when they come be digital nomads, that they're not doing it illegally. They're not going to run into trouble for themselves, for the taxes, for their employers, like tax domicile situation. But then there's people who are also looking at like, oh, what's my like long-term residency situation? Can I get like a second passport, maybe even? So that's where, I think these programs are interesting as well.
Yeah, and with Portugal, it's kind of like it almost backfired.
Yeah. Honestly, I think that's like the news. I think that has a lot more to do with the news and the narrative that people like to present, rather than I think the on-the-ground reality, because Portugal was a victim of its own success in terms of marketing as a tourist destination and as an investment destination. And I think if you look at the over-tourism problems in Lisbon and you look at the rise in the cost of living because, foreigners were coming to buy up properties to get the golden visa, the comparison of the impact that digital nomads were making is just like paled in comparison to that, but it is something that I think countries have to be mindful for. For me, I wanted to look at that narrative a little bit more because I would hear people similarly reporting in Thailand. It was like they were trying to export the outrage here and just be like neo-colonialism, gentrification, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, no, like, stop. Like, you're going to try to like dissuade the nomads from coming over here while we, the people locally who are like trying to do something, trying to build businesses, trying to grow like startup communities, like trying to create positive impact. Like you're trying to make our job harder by making digital nomads feel guilty. Like, please get your story straight. So I'm very skeptical when I get those headlines. There's something there, but we have a cost of living crisis basically everywhere in the world. You gotta draw good boundaries around your storytelling.
The first time I heard it was in 22. I was doing a walking tour in Lisbon, and the tour guide, he started talking about how much the locals dislike the nomads. And I was like, I had no idea at that point. Now I know much more about that. But it just like, I thought, oh, we're coming in here spending money.
And they don't like it.
But then I got it. I understand. I understand it drives up prices of things.
Yeah. What's interesting to me is like is cafe culture, because like I sort of realized like there was a reason that digital nomads like loved Thailand because it was so normal to take your laptop and go to a cafe here because this is something that university students started doing, right? And so it was pretty normal. And then like cafes started having like trying to be intentional about having like Wi-Fi and outlets and sort of figuring that out for themselves.
That's interesting how these cultural differences can affect the popularity of the place for digital nomads. Never thought of that before. I think there was also a research done in Chiang Mai about whether locals were happy about the fact that there are digital nomads and so many of them in the city or not. And there was an overwhelming response that, yes, they are happy and welcoming.
I think digital nomads are typically much more of the profile. It's like pro-social, aware of the rules, like neatly dressed, things like that like matter to Thai people, and we are a tourist economy. So that kind of thing is kind of baked into the underlying assumptions. But, it's not everything. Like Thailand does have its limits. I think we've had some very notable instances with, like sometimes if you're paying attention to the Thai news, like sometimes people are outraged by Chinese visitors, even though Thailand is aggressively trying to create like more flight deals, better visa conditions specifically for them. And then at other times, recently we had an Israeli woman filmed in a cafe down in Got Phangan, which is also really popular with digital nomads. And Thai people were just absolutely livid at just her display of like entitlement when talking about visas. It's also just about like local perception and integration, right? And some people, some destinations are going to have a better cultural fit or not, a better infrastructure fit or not. And that's something that I think is really I think that's where the conversation has moved to. These days, we have sort of agreed that okay, there's some better understanding of what a good digital nomad visa policy looks like. And that's some work that I've contributed to, that my co-author on that policy brief, Kaizu Koskela, has contributed to. The folks at Plumia are working on a really great global standard, single application kind of approach. So I think we're good there, but there's a lot more nuanced conversation to be had about the on the ground reality, and that's connecting with the work of community builders, like Gonzalo Hall, who did the digital nomad village in Madeira, right? It's okay, it's not just visas in the end. We need to look at how communities are integrating. And you see Bansko, where you're headed, right? They've been really supportive bringing community there. So it's not just this ski town that's empty the rest of the year, but there's actually a lot more I've heard that when that was the dominant part of the tourist economy, it was kind of like a seedy destination, but now actually it's been able to rebrand to a very like family friendly destination. And like those are the choices that you can make as well. If you're like a country or just even just like a town, you know, you don't have to be at the country level to create a digital nomad visa. Even at like the city or the regional level, people can come together to make their destinations more attractive with digital nomads and like do it in a very like collaborative win-win way.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, you mentioned some of the early movers. Is there one country or one or two countries that are doing it perfect that other countries could model from?
I mean, I honestly, like when the DTV came out, I was like, this is amazing. They thought of things that like solutions to problems that I'd noticed, but I didn't have that solution in mind. And like, it's like, okay, cool. But even then it's not perfect. You know, it's everything like here, there have been local frictions, and there's even talk about like, oh, okay, like we're going to revise the criteria and make it more difficult because it's also about balance, you know? So is anyone doing it perfectly? I wouldn't say. I would say like Thailand gets top marks, but even here, it's really not perfect because you can, you know, as we were talking about in Portugal, you can be a victim of your own success. And for them in particular, it was their golden visa rather than their digital nomad visa that had such huge impact. But I think that's what happens when it comes down to policy. You have to be really clear about what levers you're trying to move. And that's also time bound, right? Things on the ground can change. And so you need like a process that like of like a feedback. You need levers that you can control. In some realities, like if you're too successful, like do you have a quota? Do you make the criteria more restrictive? Do you cancel the program entirely? Because we have seen like not all the nomad visas that have been launched are still existing.
It's probably still too early to be doing it in an absolutely perfect way in terms of the life cycle of the whole digital nomad culture. Like these visas are very early in their development.
Yeah. So when I wrote the white paper in 2023, I was really trying to communicate this concept of the like relocation funnel, because as a marketer, I just think in funnels and you want to fill the top of your funnel and like get people down all the different stages. But visas were basically like a binary gate, like a yes, no, based on like this mountain of paperwork and eligibility criteria. And I was like, no. And so my co-author on the policy brief, like Kaizu, she was also working on like a typology of visas. And so we decided to come together and build on this remote relocation funnel. The ideal scenario isn't like a perfect visa, but it's a funnel that's optimized for that country and their goals. So you ought to touch on the tourism side, because the reality is most digital nomads don't need a digital nomad visa. They use tourist visas. And I think that's something that we want to continue to like make acceptable. Like if you think about if you go somewhere for like a conference or some business meetings, you don't usually apply for a specific visa for that, right? That's kind of understood that that's acceptable, even though like it is, you're working in another country. We don't think of that as like working illegally. There's some clarification that I think could be useful for remote work at like the tourism visa level for countries to just say like, hey, this is what's acceptable and this is what's not, right? If you come here and you do some remote work, that's fine. But if you stay beyond these days, then you need to register yourself with the authorities and you need to start thinking about taxes. And then there's, I think, the digital nomad visa, which you want to do for the slowmads, for the people who want to have some stability, that this is a place they can keep coming back to, or a place that they could use to have a home base and have a year lease. And that will make sense for them, even if they're not there 100% of the time, but they have some security, some guarantees. And for many people, that's investigative, right? They're like, oh, I might not be a nomad forever. Like, especially people who want to do business in a way that's like not just digital, people who really want to like give back to a community, people who want to like work with the land, people who want to have families and start making like, I think, you know, there's this epidemic amongst the digital nomad community, and it's not a coincidence that like people can't do this lifestyle sustainably forever, because it's normal. It's human for us to want to like belong. Right. And so, yeah, you have people who are experimenting and they want to stay somewhere for longer. And so especially when you have pathways to long-term residency or even like full citizenship, that makes your country more attractive. But again, not every country has to offer that because everyone's dealing with slightly different like demographics and cultural preferences. Yeah, it's really thinking intentionally about what you need, what value digital nomads offer to you and your community, how you want to integrate them, and then just being able to deliver on those different steps in the funnel and understand just the necessary transactions at each stage of the relationship, right?
How about Estonia?
I think in terms of executing on a visa, they did a good job because to them, it wasn't about making their visa suitable for the vast majority of digital nomads. They weren't trying to say like, let's describe who digital nomads are and make a visa that suits as many of them as possible, which is what many digital nomads felt entitled to. You know, there was a pain point there. Estonia, as a country that really prioritized their digital infrastructure, they had created these startup unicorns and they wanted to keep that momentum going, right? They were like, for some people who may already be familiar with us through e-residency and all these other things who actually want to come spend time, people of this type, we want you to be able to come physically be here. And explore those opportunities. So I think if you look at it that way, like they had a very successful digital nomad visa because again, they were intentional. They weren't just saying like, we want to open our doors to everyone. For them, it was about the knowledge transfer and the entrepreneurship opportunities.
Yeah. And something's happening in Estonia in August, right, Alexandra?
Yeah, we have the next Nomad Summit event in Tallinn in Estonia, revolving around remote employment.
Quick break and a big shout out to the sponsor of this episode, covered.ee. If you've ever applied for a digital nomad visa, you know the drill. Countries require proof of health insurance before you're approved, but most insurers lock you into a full year up front, even if your plans changed or your visa gets denied. That's exactly the problem covered.ee is solving. Their new Visa Back Start Guarantee is the first of its kind. Your coverage and your payments only kick in after your visa is approved and your travels begin. No more wasted money, no more unnecessary stress. Covered.ee is built for nomads by nomads. It meets visa requirements for countries like Spain, Portugal, Thailand, Brazil, and it even includes mental health, dental, and emergency care options. This kind of flexibility is a game changer. We've dropped a link in the show notes so you can check it out and finally get insurance that moves with you. Thanks again to covered.ee for supporting the show. That's COVRD.ee.
What do you think is the future of digital nomad visas?
I think you hopefully see countries like embrace that funnel approach, but obviously these are very like charged times to just be talking about the whole picture of global mobility. In some ways personally, I've moved on from I think a very idealistic approach to just having like a borderless world because I think that was very utopian, and I think in some ways I personally have matured in my life circumstance the same ways that the digital nomad visa landscape has matured, and I think you have to respect sovereignty in nation states. It's a balance of individual sovereignty and opportunity, as well as respecting that hey, countries have a perfect right to decide who is going to be part of their growth and who is not. They need people who are going to contribute, be able to coexist in harmony. And that's not something that's necessarily simple. I think digital nomads ought to be a win-win in that landscape, I think it makes so much sense to embrace this, given that almost every country wants to do tech and innovation, and digital nomads are a wonderful global source of talent. These are people who tend to come from very privileged backgrounds. They are working at the frontiers of innovation. They're creators and often very pro-social people. These are people who tend to want to follow the rules, which is why they like the visas. They didn't like breaking the rules in order to live their lifestyle. So you give them a visa and they're okay, now I'll commit. I'm very optimistic that digital nomads and remote workers have a very positive contribution to give, because I don't think everyone needs to come live this lifestyle. Not everyone wants to be an intrepid explorer weirdo in another land. But the weirdos are going to take some of the cool ideas and sort of see different experiments, and we can seed these, and that's really exciting to me.
Do you think there is something about getting nomads more integrated into local cultures that the governments can do or support it in any way? Because I see around the world many of these places that are very popular with nomads, but then I see nomads just sticking with other nomads and kind of moving from one place to another in this big nomad group without necessarily connecting with the locals and with the local culture. What is your view on that? Do you think that should be encouraged in some way? And maybe you have some ideas on how that could be done. What do you think?
This is, I think, a perfect example of like what top down and idealized and seems polite and nice versus bottom up, what's actually going to work. Because I really had these aspirations when I first moved back to Chiang Mai, right? Like, I'm going to bring all these people together, and then realize that like there's a language barrier, like, and like digital nomads have no friends when they're new here. Thai people have friends. They're like, why would I go to a meetup? I have enough friends. Like, and I was like, oh, and I sort of kept hitting that wall for a long time before I had a certain level of acceptance. And now if we come forward years later, you know, I think the smart conversation that should be happening is that we have a talent issue, we have a resource distribution issue, and we also have a depopulation issues. And for all the flack that they get, I think the passport bros are the ones who actually have like the potential to like save a lot of people. I know there's a lot of ick associated with that depending on your cultural context, but the thing is the people who are most integrated that I know are like my like Western digital nomad remote working friends who have Thai girlfriend. In my case, that's me too. My dad married a Thai woman because he was in the Peace Corps, and I have had access to like tremendous privilege and opportunity because, hey, I have a Thai passport, I have rights, I have roots, I have family, I have community, I have language here, but I have all the privilege that my father gave me. That's something that like you almost don't want. You don't want a dating app for that. You don't want like Silicon Valley or the government to go in there and like make it weird. But I think organically there's something that is already happening there. That's normal integration. People move around and they want to live there. It's not normal to have marketing campaigns to convince someone to like donate to an NGO to do this. Like that's a really weird series of events that are architected by culture. I think we should just be honest that it's not like integration is not a natural thing, that we're kind of forcing people to do it. And I think when we have these really idealistic projections, we run into problems. We should think about like how we like people who are like-minded. We are tribal. We are programmed to sort of have more comfort with people who are like us. These are natural human tendencies. And I think because the world of politics is so crazy, this normal human tendency has been like made out to like be a bad thing. But we should just recognize and respect that like we are going to do a far better job integrating people in ways that are more natural to them, that we as a species are more programmed towards. Like we like going to new places and intermarrying. Yeah. And that's sort of underrated.
Lily, we are out of time. We could go on for a long time. And actually, this conversation sparked, I think, 3 new topics for episodes. Like,
for sure.
Based on your talk, why we should stop being nomads, and then the one about nomads being unpopular and what can we do to be better when we come to a new place. And then the last topic that we were talking about here, how we get integrated more. Yeah, so there's so much we can cover. So I'm hoping to see you again here on the podcast.
Yeah.
Likewise.
Yeah.
It was a great conversation.
Thank you so much for taking the time.
Thank you, Lily.
Thank you, guys.
And that's it for this episode of the Nomad Summit podcast. We'll be back next week with another exciting guest. If you find this podcast valuable, please share it with your nomad friends. On behalf of the Nomad Summit team, my name is Palabo, and I gotta keep moving. See ya.
Produced by radioguru.co.uk.